So today I really wanted to share something about confidence because I think this is a really important component of developing your confidence and something that gets missed. I think confidence has two components to it. I think partly if you're developing your confidence, it's a mindset shift and it's work that you need to do around changing your beliefs. And I think it's also about practice, taking practical actions that are going to strengthen your confidence muscle and actually give you confidence in the new version of yourself that you're becoming. Now, I used to be, when I was growing up, I used to be a fairly confident person. I probably wasn't the most confident person in my school, but I certainly had a level of, I think, self-esteem, I think more than confidence. I had a level of valuing myself that was pretty healthy. It was later on in life where I was put in some situations where it really was sink or swim and I was sinking. Just because I just didn't have the experience or the skills or the mentors around me to handle what I was handling. And there was a huge amount of pressure at the same time, so it was a very emotional and emotive experience. So I often found myself in tears, really feeling the pressure of needing to handle this, but also knowing that I didn't feel like I could, and I think when I look back, I genuinely couldn't handle what I was being asked to handle, but I took a lot of pressure on myself to do it, and I was at a very young age at this stage, sort of barely 20, and yeah, I was dealing with some pretty adult things, some business things that I had no experience of, and that dented my confidence massively, and in a very insidious way, because I kept on going like this for years and I didn't really share it, I didn't really tell anybody about it, I didn't confide in anybody about it. And that made it worse, of course, because I didn't have that support network around me. I didn't have anyone to say, look, this is okay, this is completely understandable, you know, you haven't had this experience before, you've been finding your way, you've been making mistakes. And also, like, who would expect you to have that emotional maturity to be able to handle that? And so, you know, I can look back on that period of my life with some real compassion for the situation that I found myself in. And I think, I mean, this was connected with a family business, and so if there are any of you out there watching this and you've been put in that situation because of a family business, then it is very emotive, and there are lots of things sort of mixed in with your performance. It's a pressure unlike any other pressure that any other business leader will feel, and that's because you don't want to let your family down, and so there'll be a huge amount of self-inflicted pressure around that. But yeah, I do want to share a bit about that because that sort of explains why I found myself later in life, sort of through my 30s really, and I really had knocked my confidence to a point where I really was second guessing myself in anything that I did on a professional level. And it was a real shame because actually I'd got so much experience, you know, I'd experienced things at a young age that other people my age at the time in their 30s hadn't experienced. I'd been through it already. And I had developed a skill set and I had learned coping strategies. I'd also made the most amazing, stunning mistakes, which I now got to learn from. But because I just felt like my confidence was in the toilet and I didn't trust myself and I was really beating myself up for those mistakes, what I didn't do was really learn from them and then put into practice what I learned. So I think that's part of the confidence piece. So part of it was to unravel those beliefs that I'd created around I can't do this and I'm not very good at that, and things like I'm not very good at making money, or I'm not very good at keeping money. That was the other thing that came up because I hadn't been very good with credit control. And so people owed us money and I was responsible for bringing that in as a director, and I failed on that front. What I didn't do is what I should have done now looking back, is got somebody in who was really freaking brilliant at credit control and done it for me, because that's not my it's not something that I particularly want to do, and I think a lot of business owners actually don't want to do that part of it. But it's so important to make sure that you have the money that you're owed, and also it's business critical, isn't it? And also that you have systems in place to make sure that doesn't happen. Now that's not something that I immediately thought of, in that phase of life and business, because I'd never done it before. So I didn't realise the range of support that's out there, and I didn't realise that I could have a system in place to do things differently. Obviously now that would be completely different, and in fact my business is entirely set up that cannot happen. I simply do not work with people who can't afford to work with me, and I offer all sorts of different ranges of pricing to also make sure that people work with me at the right level for where they are, and the right level for where they are financially, as well as in business, and the type of support that they need. So yeah, completely different now, but those were the sorts of things that actually I developed belief systems around because of that knock in confidence that were quite unhelpful. But I needed then to unravel those, and I needed to choose to install some new belief systems that were more positive. And so I really went back and looked at what had I learned, and what did I really know now, and what did I choose to believe? What do I choose to believe about the future, and what do I need to believe if I want to be making more progress, if I want to grow my business, if I want to make more impact in the world, and I want to take the company in the direction I want to take it, then what belief systems am I now choosing? So that was a journey that I was definitely on. But the other part of confidence, as well as mindset, as well as believing that you are good enough, and believing that you do get to have a successful business, you do get to make the money that you should be making, and that you do get to have the impact that you want, as well as installing those belief systems. What I really learned over, say, the last 10 years was to put into practice taking the actions that I would be taking if I was already there. And that is an amazing way to do anything, to achieve any goal, is really to project yourself forward and to reverse engineer the steps that you would be taking. I found that the most amazing thing. But also, I felt fear along the way, and I felt that I wasn't ready. I felt that I wasn't good enough, and I've wondered how I would get there as well. But part of developing confidence, and part of becoming that person who has the knowledge, the strength, the skill, the resilience, part of becoming that person is taking the action when we don't feel ready, taking the action when we still feel afraid, taking the action when we don't have all of the answers, and just making it part of the journey. If you've resolved that you're gonna improve your confidence, then get on and do some things that are gonna put you in a position where you have to really up level that confidence. And I don't necessarily mean that you have to do something like really big and scary. Just take the next step, because I know I've done a mixture of this. I've definitely put myself in situations that were sink and swim, because I'd reached a level of confidence in myself and my skills and experience and abilities that I thought, really, Fiona, you should be doing this now. There is no reason why you shouldn't be doing this when people 20 years younger than you are doing this. I mean, that's crazy. So I've kind of given myself a little bit of self-talk around that. And I've also realised that I sometimes need to give myself that sink or swim moment that actually now, with the benefit of that experience, I can put myself in a sink and swim moment, and I can swim. And I know that sometimes I need to do that to really, I guess, give myself a challenge, a stretching challenge that I rise to meet. But it forces you to rise, and that's the point. And then at the other end of the scale, I'm always doing this every day, that I'm thinking about, well, what would the next step be? What is the next step? And if I feel fear around it, and I feel uncertainty, or I get those feelings coming up again of I'm not good enough, then I just think, well, is it the action I'm going to take or isn't it? You know, because I have had so much experience now that when I've risen to the challenge, that, gosh, 9 times out of 10, I've met the challenge. And yeah, sometimes, I must admit, sometimes it's just been too big of a leap and I've maybe backed down, or I've kind of got there to the sort of precipice and looked over and gone, I can't do it, and run away back and hide. And I have done that. There's no question about that. And I think if you're doing that on a regular basis, then we need to certainly look at that in a bigger way, in a deeper way, and see what's happening. But at the same time, I think where I've made the mistake in the past is I've really beat myself up about that, and it doesn't do you any good. So simply say it is what it is, and there's work to do. And if nothing else, it has pointed out to me where there's more work to do. And that's okay, because we're on this journey, we're making progress all the time. Same time, we're human beings, we have fears, we have self-doubt, and it's nothing to concern ourselves with, it's just something to work through. So I just wanted to share that component, I suppose, of confidence that you might be missing. So if you're only working on the mindset side of things and you're not consistently taking steps that give yourself a bit of a stretch and a bit of a challenge, then I would just encourage you to think about, well, you know, what would those steps look like? So if I'm growing my business, what would the next steps be along my journey according to my vision of what I know I'm here to do in the world, what I want to achieve in my company? Think about what those next steps would be if you did already have the confidence that you would need to be at that level. And then start taking whatever steps you can towards that, whether it's setting a deadline for, you know, reaching out to a TV production company or something like that, or whether it's, you know, speaking at an event, or whether it's, you know, reaching out to somebody in the industry that you want to collaborate with. Whatever the action is, then think about what steps can you take towards that would demonstrate to you and also strengthen that confidence muscle that would show you that, yes, I am improving, I am making strides here, and I am really rising up in terms of my level of confidence. So something to think about, and I hope that helps.